All right, welcome everybody. Really excited to be here for the second annual summit. For those who haven't had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Michael Moe with GSV. And on behalf of my colleagues at GSV and our partners at Arizona State University and Emeritus, I just want to welcome you here as we're really excited about the next couple of days. So thank you for taking your time. So I call this talk Amrit Kaul, and I hope I don't butcher too many names today. But this is really about this idea, and why we're so excited to be here is because we are at a really special moment, we think, in terms of where India is at, and the inflection point is what it means for the future. So if you look throughout history, really India and China have been mega powers. And it's only recently where that wasn't, you had these emerging powers. Mark Twain said, India is the cradle of human race, the birthplace of human speech, the mother of history, the grandmother of legend, and the great-grandmother of tradition. I think that sums it up very well. If you look at over the last 50 years, probably the most exciting story, just in terms of what was accomplished, was that of Singapore. And our friend Larry Nelson with Microsoft is a proud, he's been there for now probably a decade. But Singapore has really been an amazing story led by an amazing leader, Lee Kuan Yew, who effectively took this tiny island and made it into a global powerhouse. And so when Singapore became independent, its GDP per capita was just $500, which is basically equivalent to what Jamaica was, which is another small island. Using the formula of EIEIO, which, by the way, is a newsletter we put out every week if you don't get it, which stands for Entrepreneurship, Innovation, Education, Impact, and Creating Equal Opportunity for All, that was really the playbook that he used to transform this little nation state. And over the past nearly 60 years, Singapore today has a $72,000 GDP per capita using that EIO formula, where Jamaica's just at $4,587. So Pablo Picasso said that good artists copy, great artists steal. And so leaders looked at what happened in Singapore, and the effective ones basically took that playbook and tried to apply it. So China was probably the most aggressive and you look at China in 1974, like India, had about a GDP per capita of $160. Using that playbook, took the college education enrollment up to 60%, and really transformed that economy, brought hundreds of millions of people from poverty to the middle class, and became an economic engine. So the Chinese GDP per capita, over this past 50 years, has grown to $12,621. So just over a decade ago, two very transformational leaders came on the global economic scene and political scene. So President Xi in China and President Modi in India. So, looking at the comparative in 2014 in GDP per capita, obviously China was ahead of India, and that was sort of the state of play as it was. President Xi's big bet was the Belt and Road Initiative, basically creating this connection around the globe through infrastructure and partnerships, and that was sort of his main big idea to create Chinese superiority. The Modi magic is really quite interesting, complex, and impressive. Part of that I was just bringing this spirit, bringing this 1.4 billion people together with the idea that anything is possible and making things happen. It also is involved investment in infrastructure, about a tripling of the investment in roads and railway spending, and that's obviously been a part of the formula. But probably the most important initiative is the DPI initiative, which has created the digital infrastructure, effectively leapfrogging and accelerating the India economy and society in a way that is extraordinary and creates a foundation for future success that we think is extremely impressive. You look at this digital infrastructure, just the last 10 years of the Modi leadership, you've had smartphones go up to 66% from just 15%, population with internet access nearly 50%. They're looking at, talent goes where opportunity is. So 20 years ago, 80% of the IIT grads went outside the country for opportunity. Today, 2/3 stay in India. Venture capital has gone up from $2 billion in 2014 to $28 billion. Number of startups was just 350 in 2014. I remember coming here in 2014, and you could just sort of see this whole thing kind of boiling up. But again, now over 110,000 startups in India. Number of unicorns gone from 4 to 111. Number of IPOs from 47 to 149. IPOs, by the way, are a lagging indicator. Looking at the Indian Stock Exchange in January, India surpassed Hong Kong in terms of its market value, in terms of the stocks that are listed on the Hong Kong Exchange versus the India Exchange. You look at the PE ratio. The India PE ratio exchange is 3x of what it is in Hong Kong, because that's what investors' optimism is about and reflects what the future the investors think holds for the Indian businesses. Looking at the progress in just some key other drivers, females with bank accounts has gone from 39% to 79%. Poverty rates gone down from 55% to just 16%. The number of Indians in the middle class under the Modi government, 232 million Indians have gone into the middle class in the last 10 years, and it's expected that another nearly 570 million will happen by 2047. Just to put context around that, the European Union population in total is 450 million people. Just so think about what that means in its effect. So areas to focus on. So college enrollment still, looking across the United States, China, and Israel, significantly more than India, but we've got obviously a lot of things happening in a positive way here. R&D as a percent of GDP at a smaller level than some of the competitors. Female labor force participation, again, it's a great opportunity, but significantly lower in India than the United States, China, or Israel. GDP per capita, again, long way to grow, but you can just imagine what's happening here as this continues to kick in. The one thing that, as an entrepreneur and just as a society, the one key thing to appreciate that we know is that things change. And over time, things can change dramatically. So if you look at India, 224 years ago, it was made up of a bunch of different geography. Britain had its influence on a bunch of it. Pakistan and India were still kind of connected. To go from Bombay to Bangalore would take a generation, and you'd lose half your travel party. Today, when you fly from Mumbai to Bangalore, that takes 2 hours, and if your internet doesn't work, you're pissed off. Take a close look at this picture. This is the Tour de France 100 years ago. You see what's going on? They're all smoking. Why is that? 100 years ago, it was thought that smoking cigarettes would actually enhance your athletic performance. This is Henry Ford. 100 years ago, Detroit, Michigan was the Silicon Valley of its day. That's where the talent moved, because that's where the opportunity was. Detroit is not anything like that today. Silicon Valley 100 years ago was farm fields, apricot orchards, apple orchards. Stanford, nobody knew about Stanford unless you basically were living in Palo Alto. Silicon Valley today is the home to many of the mega changers that have really transformed the world that we're in, from Facebook to Google to Apple, all being these incredible businesses. Again, that all just happened over the last 20, 30 years. This is Gordon Moore. And I would argue Gordon Moore has been about as transformational figure as anybody you'd ever seen, because he, just over 50 years ago, had this idea that computing power was going to double every couple years. And what's so interesting about Moore's Law, what became known as Moore's Law, is it wasn't a scientific or physical law. It was basically Gordon Moore imposing his will upon an industry, and not only transforming the technology industry, but changing the world as we know it. Just some of the impact of Moore's Law just in the last 20 plus years. The cost of computing has gone down 99%. Cost of storage is basically free with infinite capacity. So if the automobile industry had that same type of progress, A Ford Taurus that cost $20,000 in 1990 would cost less than $1 today, and you'd throw it away after you used it. Market cap of BlackBerry and Apple. Remember BlackBerry? BlackBerry and Apple had the same exact market cap in 2007 when Apple introduced its iPhone, each at $70 billion. That's changed a little bit. Today, Apple's market cap is $2.8 trillion. BlackBerry is $1.7 billion. Take a close look at this picture. This is St. Peter's Square in 2005. You got it? Here's what it looks like today. So what's happened in this last 20 years is basically everybody has become a photographer with their digital camera. What's so interesting about how things change is that Kodak, which had the patent for digital photography, went bankrupt in 2011. So again, just because things are changing and just because you should theoretically have an advantage doesn't mean that you're going to ultimately win. So not only do things change over time, but things are changing faster than ever. So looking at the time it's taken to reach 50 million customers after a technology is commercialed has sped up dramatically. So when airlines were introduced, it took 68 years to reach 50 million passengers. Telephone, it took 50 years. Electricity took 46 years. The computer took 14 years. Cell phone took 12 years. Internet took 7 years. Facebook took 3 years. Twitter took 2 years. And ChatGPT took 5 weeks. So we call this not just a megatrend, this is a gigatrend. And this is going to make the time ahead a very, very exciting times, we believe. And I think we're going to talk a lot about this the next couple of days. We're so excited about what's going on with artificial intelligence and how that's going to impact education. We've created a special edition to our San Diego conference we call the Air Show. And people say, what does the Air Show mean? Well, we say that Air Show is AI Revolution Air Show, but it's also that we think that AI is like air because it's invisible, it's ubiquitous, and you're going to need it to live. And so, again, we think that that kind of reflects that, and please come for the couple days that we have in front of that. So if you look at technology and humans, humans' capabilities are growing on a linear path, and technology is growing on an exponential path, and we're here. So what does this mean? That pretty soon the technology is going to replace the technologist. So that's not just going to impact blue-collar jobs and white-collar jobs, it's also going to impact no-collar jobs. So as we look at how AI gets built up, you've got the software layer, which is basically codifying knowledge. You have AI layer, which is making that knowledge intelligent. Then you have the smart layer on top of it, which is human intelligence. And we think that's how things evolve. So my friend Mark Andreessen says that software is eating the world, but AI is its teeth, and humans are going to decide what to eat. And my brother, Bill Campbell, who they called the coach of Silicon Valley, my good friend who passed away in 2006, said, when we have facts, we'll use facts. But when we just have opinions, we'll use mine. So the more content is AI generated, the more it becomes a commodity, and the best opportunities will always be on the edge. So good is gone, great isn't enough, outstanding is the future. I think that's exciting for humanity. So it's not man versus machine, it's man and machine. And while the last 30 years was the revenge of the nerds, we think the next future is back to the future, and the skills that people need to thrive are going to be multiple, well-rounded. This is I'm wrapping up just a couple of themes to put in context in terms of where we're going. One is this idea that we named our firm after. GSV stands for Global Silicon Valley, because we felt when we started the firm a dozen years ago that the mindset of innovation and entrepreneurship that's made Silicon Valley such a special place was going to spread throughout the world, and we wanted to connect Silicon Valley to this emerging global Silicon Valley. Just to give you a data point around that, when we named the firm GSV, 92% of all venture capital was United States, and most of that was Silicon Valley. Last year, 55% of all venture capital was outside the United States. So this global Silicon Valley is happening in a very real way. The people here in India know that better than anybody. So we like to say it's not just between San Francisco and San Jose anymore. It's from Austin to Boston, from Chicago to Sao Paulo, from Mumbai to Shanghai to Dubai. That's the global Silicon Valley. So just, being an entrepreneur is exciting. Talked about how startups have gone from 350 startups in India to over 110,000 today. but there's some realities about being a startup. So every day in India, 80 new startups are formed. Every day in India, 80 new startups fail. In 2023, there was just 9 VC-backed companies, tech companies that went public. A new startup has a 20% chance of surviving its first 3 years, 80% more likely to have a heart attack if you're an entrepreneur, 2 times more likely to get divorced, 3 times more likely to go bankrupt. What kind of nut would start a business? So see if you can name this pioneer. He dropped out of the cheapest college that he could afford in Mumbai, moved to London to study law, came home to find out that his mother died, tried and failed to establish a law practice in Mumbai, tried to work as a litigation assistant, but was forced to quit that job, moved to South Africa for a total salary of 105 pounds, not allowed to sit with his European passengers on trains. He was beaten for refusing to move, spent 6 years in prison throughout his life. Who's this? Gandhi. So his teachers told him he was too stupid to learn anything. He was fired from his first 2 jobs for lack of productivity. This was Thomas Edison, who invented the electric light bulb, the stock quote machine, the movie camera, many other things. 99% success is 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration. General Electric, 140 million market cap. So this entrepreneur was fired by his newspaper editor because he lacked imagination and had no good ideas. He launched his film studio in 1920, and then in 1921, both went bankrupt. Who is this? Walt Disney, Magic Kingdom, $164 billion market cap today. So Walton's Five and Dime started in Missouri. First store closed, went out of business. Second store he opened up next, it closed as well, moved to Bentonville, Arkansas. That's Walmart, $420 billion market cap. So this pioneer entrepreneur was told by his Yale professor, in order to earn better than a C, the idea must be at least feasible. And so thankfully, Fred Smith didn't listen to his Yale professor, and he started Federal Express anyway. But like many startups, it took more time and more money than he expected, so all his investment capital went away. And so he went to his investors, and he had $5,000 in the bank. They wouldn't fund him anymore. So he did what any great entrepreneur would do. What do you think he did? Went to Vegas, took the $5,000, played blackjack over the weekend, made $27,000. Federal Express planes flew Monday morning, doing literally whatever it takes. Fired as a CEO while he was on vacation, spent every dime he had to keep his next company afloat. The other company found it literally crashed and burned, Elon Musk. So the point, I guess you can see the theme of the story. I mean, these overnight successes take a hell of a long time, and there's a lot of bumps along the way. Look at just a couple more stories. This pioneer moved to Mumbai to become a movie star. Rejected because he was too tall and too ugly. Tried to become a radio DJ, rejected because his voice was too deep. Got a chance in a movie, but it flopped. The next 9 movies he's in also failed. So then he got a role in the movie Zanjeer, which changed everything and made him a massive star. Then he went bankrupt due to paying unpaid debts in 2000. Who's this? Like, oh, that's Big B. Graduating college at 16, started as an entrepreneur selling fritters, moved to Yemen to work at a gas station, moved back to India with $600 to start a textile trading company. Traders refused to buy his textiles, so he sold them directly on the streets. Mr. Ambani, father of a $100 billion fortune. Last one. Started as a research assistant for his professor in business school. His first startup failed in 18 months. He was arrested and expelled from a train while traveling in communist Bulgaria. Lubin's family. Left in solitary confinement without food or drink for 5 days. Started his next company with $250. Who's that? Mr. Murthy, the co-founder and CEO of Infosys. So that's the entrepreneurial journey. And so as we talk in the next couple of days about these very exciting ideas, we look at how this all needs to progress. You know, this is about a community, this is about ideas, and this is about making things happen. So just in quick closing, I'm going to interview Mr. Kant in a few seconds. He had a great quote that kind of sums up a lot of what I was just saying. which said, Indian mothers do not want their child to fail. All parents must know that their child must fail once or twice. And that's what success is about. It's never a smooth path. So with that, I want to thank you for giving me some time, and I'm looking forward to the interview that we're about to have. Thank you.